Season 6, Episode 5, I Spy with My Little Eye. Sara introduces the topics of design for crime and surveillance systems with artificial intelligence, predictive analytics. Alan speaks about his experiences with intelligent surveillance systems and their ability to see, feel, hear and decide on responses. Additionally, Alan presents a work health and safety case in which the regulator charged a manager for their alleged inadequate development of a work procedure. Wait, what? Questions Sara. What a discouragement.
Welcome to the system.
Yeah. 1, 2, kid. This speed. R for D. And we're gonna bust it up like this. I'm crushing empty broken cans with my dirty hands, poisoned by devil's weed, dreaming off foreign lands. Ever since my very spark of life, I've been caught in this astrological plight.
Hello, and welcome to the WHAaaaT podcast, a series of playful legal dissections on the most curious and alarming events in the world of work. The podcasters Alan Girl, Trajce and Sara Pazell debate how to craft a better experience of work. Sit back, relax and enjoy. And remember, none of the things we talk about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work.
So Trajce, let me circle back to something we've been talking about. So it has very...
Yeah,
I'm going to do it again?
Do it again? Yeah.
Oh.
Just do it. Please. Go. So Sara.
Yeah, I haven't heard you use the F-bomb before,
I
don't
got
think.
plenty more where that comes from. Okay. So, Trajce, I just want to talk about something that circles back to what we were talking about, design for crime, but also strongly links to all of this design discussion we've been sharing this morning, right? So, about design for crime. I'd love to know your thoughts, because this comes up again and again in service-related industries, and I'm sure you could apply it across many industries. But the issue of cameras, the use of camera surveillance, the benefits. So what I come across, if it's a service industry, like, I don't know, if it's healthcare or education, social work, that there may be a use of some surveillance in some restricted areas, and when it is used by businesses, it's used retrospectively and not managed well, meaning if something went wrong, we might go back, hope that the camera was functioning well at the time, see if we can find the surveillance. We don't have a real management plan on it, and we're not using it for predictive analytics. But let's just hope for that moment in time, whatever adversity arose, that we'd be able to capture something on camera, and then we can look at it later for investigations or for event analysis, as opposed to predictive analytics, where we actually can do object detection. We have some way of analyzing this and informing somebody and putting alerts out earlier if something needs to, be addressed. We have a system where we know that the camera is maintained, that we know that the recording is current and accurate, that we know that the system is functioning well, and we have it comprehensively throughout our organization. And there's a whole control room of people managing this, right? That's the one extreme where it's really used effectively. But most of the time I see the former, where it's just a little camera here or there, and maybe not always managed well, and only after an event do we go check it.
The cameras are amazing now, absolutely amazing. I work for a company, Visions, who have intelligent cameras, and so their cameras can do everything that a human being can do. So it can look, distinguish, and identify what it's looking at. Right. And make decisions on the basis of that.
And make decisions. So some AI built into it.
Yeah.
I'm like, can it smell?
It can.
Aroma, fragrances.
Sorry, it can't smell, but it can. It has all the other senses. At least I'm not aware that they can smell yet, but it can see, hear, feel. It can do all those
Explain
kind of
that to me. Explain that.
So it can tell whether the wind direction, the temperature. It can tell how foggy or dusty something is. It can do better than humans in that it can put a number on the amount of dust in the air, which is particularly important
Particles.
for many industries.
Exposures, yep.
And it can distinguish between animals, humans, plants, objects, speed, all sorts of stuff.
So when you say speed, does it have predictive analytics on the trajectory of travel before the travel occurs?
So the cameras can be used, for example, on trains for identifying whether the kids are on the train, riding on trains, which is a major problem for trains, of course. Do all sorts of different things. Now, with that in mind, really, you can get cameras to do just about anything that a human being can do these days, and you really, at the design phase, need to ask the question of what do we actually want? What are
purpose
we getting
and
them
context?
For? Yeah.
Yay! Back to what I was saying. Purpose and context.
Yeah, there's a bigger issue because the laws are complex, and it depends which state you're in. So, for example, if you get visual and no audio, you might be in a better position than if you get visual and audio. So you should be asking, do we actually need the audio? And you might get face identification and no face identification. So you might want that function or you might not want that function. You'd also, at a design phase, you'd be thinking, how long do we want to keep the footage for? Do we want to keep the footage for years or do we want to keep the footage for days? And, that's an issue to be discussed. So when you get to surveillance, and we're just talking about cameras at the moment, not other types of surveillance, but when you're talking about surveillance with cameras, I think it's incredibly important. Before you talk to the lawyers, work out what do we want to actually achieve? What's the technology that can do that? And then let's go and have a chat to the lawyers and work out what's legal and what's not legal.
So you've just said to me, get your design brief right. This is what most designers will say, please, too. So you're saying that.
You've got to start knowing what you want.
Yeah.
What do you think, Trajce?
This comes back to what I'm saying. Most companies don't know how to articulate their problem-based design statements in such a way that designers understand what they're asking. I find this all the time.
Yes. Now, we've heard on earlier episodes about how high-tech your home is, including with escape ladders to get out in the event of a fire.
That's right.
So
all the scenarios and the what-ifs if a fire comes in your bedroom, right?
So you can get many surveillance devices, not just cameras, but other things as well that will detect fires, and you must have fire alarms.
I don't want to know what Trajce is doing with cameras in his bedroom. I don't too much information.
We've got the
Is that with the
Hey. That's got to be buried now.
That's it. That's it. I'm not even going to answer that or any of those things. We don't need that. What we've got is, well, that's what you're suggesting. All these. What's wrong with a simple ladder that goes off, a dog that can bark if there's a fire, an alarm system that goes off?
Remember we used to get magazines where you could open them up and you could scratch and sniff?
Scratch and sniff.
Oh,
I can't remember, but they don't do that anymore.
Do you know what happened to me the other day? We're going to go back to surveillance in just 1 second, but you know what happened? You know what happened to me the other day is I was in an office supply store. Big office supply store.
Start with O and end with K.
KS, yes. Yeah. So, and I said, I want to thank some contributing authors for their chapter that they wrote in our Healthcare Insights book. And I want to send a little note, a personalized note. I'm just looking for some stationery to put that inside because I don't want to write inside people's books in case they wanted to gift it or do whatever they want. I wanted just to write a note. I said, can you point me in the direction to find stationery in a stationery store? I said, the woman gave me this blank look and went, you want to hand write a note? I said, I do, indeed. I just want stationery. Any stationery in here? Zero. None.
You're kidding?
No, that's not true. That's not true. I've been there many times.
They could not find it. We went up and down aisles. I could have office printing paper. I found the solution. The staff did not know where to point me. And these are staff who are there and, they can tell you third aisle, second shelf, second pen on the left type of detail. They could not tell me where to find just handwritten, nice stationery. They said, go to David Jones was the advice I got. Go to a different high-level retail store. So I found little notes magnet that had a nice inspirational message, and I'm ripping off each page that would have been normally a fridge magnet notepad, right? I found that in there myself, and that's what I can use because they no longer sell this. Because you're talking about old school. No, because it's all technology. I can find phones to buy and computers to buy and headsets and microphones and cables.
So you're talking about staff knowing their own product.
They act up and down the
didn't have
aisles. They did not have nice stationery. I went up and down the aisles myself. They had a few kids drawing psychedelic color pages,
So
pads.
you
They
can
did
get
not.
scented- You can get lovely scented paper.
Nothing
Rose.
nice, no stationery in a stationery store. What used to be a stationery
with
store
fancy
because
paper.
of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, and what they sell.
So you basically couldn't get fancy paper.
No,
Get
I had
fancy
to. I
cards.
compromised. I found a workaround, but the lady was about to send me away and tell me to go
Yeah.
to David Jones.
So it's a
Okay,
sign of the times.
now tie that back into design, I think.
Well, you were just talking
Well,
about
just saying,
technology
you
that's
can
gone.
over-process, like over
Over-process.
Like, so you're telling me about your clients or the people you know who have got these really cool, adaptive, fancy cameras, and applying it to my fire emergency scenario. Ladder, rung, fire legally. You have to have.
Well,
Okay,
they'd
but-
be able to tell whether it was an identifiable stranger or whether it was
Yeah.
one of the usual residents in
so
your
let
house.
me go
But
back.
what's if we may not want it to identify them?
I don't want. I don't want to ask who's coming in your bedroom. Okay, I'm not going to ask. So wait. Okay, let me pull back. Right.
Too much,
Too
I'm
much
just
info.
struggling with that thought. I mean,
too much process.
surely you want to know.
So,
I'm sure Renee wants to know if there's a stranger in the house.
Or not.
or not. Okay, so if I go back to that road travel scenario, right? I don't even have a camera in my car, but I should. I just drive an older car. I'm
see?
cam. I have no dash cam, right? Older car. I'm waiting for my son who's old enough to drive it, and he can have this car, right? I have no dash cam. I should just buy one, right? But I have that. I always think of it after.
They're not cheap.
Yes, they are. $100. $100.
No, about
that's when they're
$1,000.
battery powered. If
About
you want
$1,000.
to hardwire them
Wired.
in.
So I'm saying this. I agree. I should buy a dash cam, and I think of it every single time an event happens, and then I forget and I get busy and whatever. The point is, you've just talked about having old school methods,
Yeah.
and I started the conversation by saying, what about social enterprises, healthcare, education, and their use of surveillance? I've just related it to the example of my vehicle, of seeing this car go right past me up the one-way road in the wrong direction. It would have been perfect to have a dash cam record that, right? It's particularly if something had ever gone wrong, but even just preventive to say, what's wrong with this person? Do we need to check and make sure they're okay? Yeah. But the other aspect, in schools, in healthcare, in a social situation, it can. Sometimes you'll have people say, oh, the ethics, I don't want that around. But I've also seen and heard about scenarios where if it's a provider, a healthcare provider, or an educator, it can protect them if a false claim is made against them also. And that has happened again and again.
Absolutely, but you do have a clash of cultures there in that in today's society, photographing children is viewed very poorly.
Consent would be an issue.
But the flip
But
side
it happens at schools. There's surveillance in schools now. In a lot of places, a lot of schools are decked out.
We've seen a lot of cases, and they're coming out even now.
No, I think the story is now teachers wearing body cam like police. That's been the current debate, and it's a bit of a too hard basket, I think, for
wouldn't you just have static cameras in the classrooms?
They do in some, but not all.
This is so, for example,
where teachers are being assaulted.
The story, the baseball case that we gave. So this is where it's problematic. But you're right. There are security cameras at the moment everywhere in all public places. I mean, if you go to there's hundreds of cameras.
Where there's an incident that's been captured on film, it often short circuits litigation, because you don't get this big argument about what the facts are, because it's just captured on film.
Yep.
Context still matters, though. You still,
it does,
context matters. Yeah. Smelling.
I didn't say feeling. I'll have to check with the client whether the camera has feelings.
Like feeling, temperature, and all these things.
Feeling the wind flow, the wind through its hair, through its electronic tendrils.
Correct.
Tendrils. That's right.
Well, I think every case is going to have to be determined on its own facts, because every design is going to be uniquely different. Start with a good design, and the designer needs to remember that any problems they create don't go away.
Yes. Yes.
You mentioned before about the integration of work health safety legislation with things that were in industrial law, with workplace protections, with aspects of the right to disconnect and psychosocial harms, with prejudicial treatment in biases and how that crosses over. And now we're crossing this nexus, the lily pads, the happy little frogs and the lily pads with design too.
Well, it's all converged.
It's converged.
It's a convergence going on. Everything that rises must converge.
I've got this picture of you because of this.
Converge!
Psychedelic. There's or Wizard of Oz and the psychedelic right now.
Speak.
Welcome to the system.
Uh-oh. Watch out. You're in trouble.
Yeah, that sounds like trouble.
Okay.
You're in trouble.
So you're reading that as having a pleasant tone. Maybe it's got a sarcastic tone.
Look at stars and beautiful eyes, no angry.
No, I would say that's sarcastic. I would not.
I'd go home so that you're covered.
Get out of
go
here.
home with a gift.
28 years.
You don't want to be with us, man.
She forgot as well, I think. 28 years married.
What are you telling us about? Case?
A worker who got charged in relation to drafting a safe work procedure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Are we on?
We're on.
Oh.
Tell us about it, Alan.
So, Trajce, I want to tell you about this case. It's cutting edge, only just happened, and will be particularly interesting for those listeners that are members of unions, trade unions. And just sort of as an opening to this, the work health and safety space is constantly growing, constantly getting bigger, and we've talked in the past about how it's creeping into recreational activities. Well, this is a new area that it's crept into. We haven't. I'm not aware of any case in Australia like this before. So just recently, a worker who was employed by a business as a work health and safety manager was charged because the perception, at least the perception by the regulator, is that a safe work procedure was inadequate. And the safe work procedure was inadequate because it had been developed without reference to an operator's manual for a particular piece of plant, reference to Australian standards, and they're the main things. But the issue here is that the worker developed the safe work procedure, that's to use the language of the regulator, didn't put the procedure in place, simply developed it. And if you think about around Australia, every single working day of the week, there are workers involved who are encouraged by their employers to get involved in developing safe work procedures. And if you think about it, that's happening around Australia every single day, every single working day of the year, then some of those are not going to be right. Some of them will be mistakes. Now, there's immunity under the legislation for health, a high level of immunity under the legislation, that's the Work Health and Safety Act, for health and safety representatives and for government-approved work health and safety officers. But if you're part of the Health and Safety Committee or you're a safety professional who's not officially elected as a health and safety representative or you're not officially appointed as a government-approved work health and safety officer, then you have no immunity under the legislation. You're just like any other worker. And if you're involved in the development of a procedure and then the regulator subsequently thinks that procedure is inadequate, then you could be charged.
Ouch.
Now that's new. That is brand new.
That's because of consultation. Like you said, the encouragement to consult with workers. And even though we said consultation is somewhat tokenistic, for those who participate, the next step, this is a problem.
So if you're a worker and you're approached by management and they say, "Oh, look, we want to develop some safety procedures. Would you like to come on board and help out?" And
sure,
we'll give you a free lunch
about
if you
this.
come and
come and
help
barbecue
out.
Friday.
Yeah, sure. If the worker went and saw a lawyer, and the lawyer would say, "Well, look, if you get involved, you've got a risk exposure because you could be involved in developing a procedure, and if there's any inadequacies in the procedure, then you could be charged for your involved in development of that." Or
What if they
the lawyer
don't
would
sign
say,
off on it and they say,
alternatively-
I was just consulted and gave... and
Well, it doesn't really matter whether you
No.
sign off or not. Well, it does, it
but
does matter
how-
in a practical sense,
Yeah,
but it doesn't
right.
matter in a theoretical sense. Or the lawyer might say, well, if you don't get involved, then you don't have any risk. So I find this
problematic.
really... I'll even use the word shocking. I am shocked that the regulator has actually brought charges in this case because it really cuts against the culture of work health and safety.
And what they say that they encourage is robust consultation.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
involvement.
right.
And I want to say
Yeah.
participation.
Yeah.
I want to take it further. But anyway,
So
But the silver lining, and I guess because the health and safety representative training unions have the lion's share of training for health and safety representatives. So today, if you want to be involved in safety, it's much, much better if you get involved in safety as a elected health and safety representative or get involved in safety as an appointed government approved work health and safety officer.
for this level of protection, you're saying.
To have immunity, it's the only way you can have immunity under the legislation.
But then what about the taxidermy case at the Queensland Museum? There wasn't immunity there?
No, but that wasn't the process of developing a safe procedure. That was really failure to follow safe
Implementing
procedures.
it. Right, okay.
And there have been cases of private consultants being charged. There's a few of those,
But
but not of employees.
Yeah, but if you've got committees of, let's say, large organisations with, 50 or 60.
Well, you're probably on a safety committee for the university.
They're doing procedures across states. Yeah.
Well, as your lawyer, I have to advise you that you have a risk exposure.
Yeah.
If
And
the
this is
committee
business-
develops
this
a
is
safe work
hilarious.
procedure
This is
and it's
business and law,
inadequate.
Yeah, it's
business and law department, the unit.
in fact,
How about
no,
HSR reps? Are they immune?
Yeah, but
Yeah, they have
but
immunity.
They are,
But
right.
the problem with that for employers is the election process of electing a health and safety representative is quite burdensome and costly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But I wonder, though, the facts, though, of that particular one, it must be extraordinary, because the whole system would collapse if suddenly, all the advice was given that, unless you're a HSR or a government-appointed a person with immunity, the system would just implode.
But it sets precedent, and that's the
Correct.
problem. That's
So
even
there
I
is,
know that. Even I know that.
But there's sort of unspoken rules that we follow as practitioners, and one of the unspoken
Conventions.
rules was if you were a safety practitioner, you would never be charged.
That type of thing.
But that's
because
gone. That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but I wonder if that case, the facts, they must have been so extraordinary and so... I don't think that'll set a precedent. I'm not convinced. The system would just fall apart. It'd be the whole tripart arrangement.
It's the beginning of the apocalypse.
It could be the four horsemen of OHS. Oh, imagine with that. All right, that's a good one though. So I guess the takeaway is...
Well, I think people should stop and think and say, should we be having elections of health and safety representatives, or should we be? If I'm a safety professional within an employer organisation, should I get officially appointed as a work health and safety officer?
And do we have outside hired consultants that can help advise on this, and how is this vetted, and who's signing off on this, and what's my role, and have that scope really clearly articulated if you're going to participate?
As an external consultant, you manage that risk through insurance. And that's part of the business risk of, that's part of the risk of doing business. But when you're an employee, you kind of don't feel, you shouldn't need to get your own independent insurance. Yeah. Yes, you do.
You expect to be protected. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Why Work. You've been listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan. And if you'd like to know more about some of the things we've talked about today, please subscribe, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with information, names of cases, and other things that may interest you. Please be aware that none of the matters we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work. See you next time.
Trajce, our most avid listener, has raised a point with me, and I couldn't remember the answer. In all four seasons that have come out so far, we've had one beep. And it's Sara. Sara gets beeped.
Yay!
I mean...
I feel like the winner chicken dinner here.
And I was asked, and I could not remember what was beeped?
Am I allowed to say it?
Well,
Really, is it?
can
It's
I-
not a
You'll get
swear
beeped
word.
again.
Can I
No,
say?
I don't
can
know why
just
he.
say-
I don't know why he was so embarrassed.
Yeah,
right?
I know. I remember why. But can I just say?
Come on, let me
Sarah
say it.
should have been beeped a long, long, long time. But I indulged. She's
Can
out of the
I
box,
just say
Sarah.
Are you saying she doesn't get enough beeps?
Well, I should have been more, but I was very, very discreet with my beeping. But on this occasion, I thought, nah, Sarah,
No,
you've gone too far.
It's not a swear word. That's what's funny. It depends on your context and how you interpret it. Can I say it?
Yeah,
We just need to explain it. It's for everybody, episode season 5. Season 5.
This is for Lee. Lee, this is what was beeped.
Hi, Lee. It's snag bag.
It's going to get beeped.
No, that's not.
You're gonna
It's
keep
not a
saying
swear
it.
word. We got to do it. We got to do it. We got to share it. My American friends wouldn't know it either, and they need to know it. And then they can Google it and do whatever. I didn't even know it was a thing. All right.
No, for our fans only, so they can find out what that means.
What you thinking? You jumped up in the system. Welcome to the system. Welcome to the system. Welcome to the system. Yeah. Welcome to the system.